Do you think Man City will get charged? Well, they're already charged. We should point that out. This is the hearing to defend the charges. And look, I don't know. For me to sit here and say I know definitely how this is going to play out, I don't. My fear is the same as everybody else's, that they'll find a way through sheer financial means of hiring the top-notch. Do you know what? I'm going to be very blunt about this because I think it's time I speak about it from a more blunt sense. The Premier League at the moment don't seem able to enforce the rules of a league that they govern. And I find it very disconcerting that outside forces from another country, not to have a dig at Saudi or any one country, but from any other country, can come in and start almost telling the country and the league what they're going to do in their league. Because then they don't like rules. They don't like being told no. I think, from the outside, as an Irish person, that the English government, the British government, need to grow a pair here. Because it's not going to end well. Let's say City win this scenario. Let's say actually just the associated party transactions part of this, which there was supposed to be a vote on yesterday in the Premier League. That vote was pulled at the last minute. Lots of speculation and reporting now that Manchester City have had some success in challenging the associated party transactions. And to just make sure I clarify this isn't part of the 115 charges, although there is some crossover. Associated party transactions simply means that you can bring in sponsorship from sympathetic companies or companies owned by your ownership at inflated prices, and there's nothing that the Premier League can do about it, despite them knowing it isn't fair market value. The rules were brought in after PSO was set up, after the takeover of Newcastle. Manchester City have challenged this, and if they defeat it, there's nothing to stop Newcastle or Manchester City taking in sponsorship deals of hundreds of millions from companies that none of us have ever heard of, to have unlimited wealth to fund their team, and there's fuck all that you can do about it. Because they've come in and dictated to another country how the rules are going to work and thrown a shit ton of money at it, and political influence most likely. And I don't like it. I cannot imagine it happening elsewhere. I cannot imagine anybody going into the NFL and dictating to the NFL and challenging their rules. It's the Premier League and the rules that everyone signed up to. How are they able to challenge rules that you've signed up to? I know that somebody's going to say there's a loophole in law or something like that, but it just seems so counterintuitive that the best league in the world, the most watched league in the world, the richest league in the world, is about to be potentially undermined by outside interference coming in and making a mockery of the laws of a different country. I find it very fucking disturbing. And if successful, I don't know where the Premier League goes from here, because it loses credibility. It loses its selling point. And I would promise you, I would feel this way if this was an Irish company or an American company. I don't give a shit that it's Saudi or Abu Dhabi. It doesn't mean anything to me because I've nothing against the people of Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi. But the rules are the rules. You signed up for them. You came in to play. It just baffles me. It really does. I don't understand how the Premier League are able to be undermined with their own rules that everyone signed up for. I'd love to know how you guys feel about it, because as an outsider, you look at it and you think, it used to be a lot of Russian money in London. That money has been pulled out. That money has been replaced with other investments into London and money into the UK. And it just all feels grubby. And it feels like, once again, football isn't being very transparent, because all these meetings are held in private and we don't get any information on them. I mean, let me just paint you a picture, and I'm going to be really blunt about this again. If Man City win this associated party transactions case, or indeed defeat the Premier League on the 115 odd charges, what's the point for the rest of us? What's the point for every other club in the Premier League? They might as well fuck off and join the Super League, because the Premier League will become a joke. That's how strong I think this situation could become, and that's how worrying it is, because The Premier League has built itself up into being, in my opinion, the best league in the world. And yes, you can talk about the fact that some clubs have been more successful than others over the years, and some clubs have been able to use their financial and commercial power. But ultimately, what these people are saying is that they're coming in and they don't agree with the rules of law. They don't agree with what was already agreed and they signed up to, and they're challenging it. And if they challenge it and they win, it's what do you do from there? They can just keep throwing money at it. Keep buying league title after league title after league title after league title, and it becomes a pissing contest for the richest countries in the world. And that's not what sport should be about. Look, again, I could go on about this for hours and hours and hours and hours, but ultimately it boils down to you signed up to the damn rules. Obey the rules or fuck off. That's the way I look at it as a fan. And I would, again, it's got nothing to do with where these people are from. It's to do with there is another 19 clubs in the Premier League that need to be looked after here, and more clubs that will come up and go down through the Premier League in years to come. The entire credibility of the league could go out the window because of the greed and wealth of one participant in the league just pushing this narrative, and it really riles me up. Right, so 2 of the charges are related to them claiming 61.5 million when they only received 8 million from Etihad for 2 years running. I've seen all those emails, mate. I've seen their Spiegel reporting. I've seen exactly what you're talking about. It's just so worrying. It's so worrying, because if they win it, I don't know what the other clubs are going to do. Because if you're Liverpool or Manchester United or Everton or Spurs or Arsenal, and let's say that Manchester City beat the charges, or even the associated party transactions thing, it just becomes a pissing contest between themselves and Newcastle's owners to see who can spend the most money. And that's it. Nobody else will be able to compete, because as I've warned for many, many years, if you're not running it as a business, if you're not running it as a real investment to make money or break even, nobody can compete when there's no jeopardy for City's owners or Newcastle's owners when they've bottomless ends of money. They can just keep throwing money at it over and over and over again. There's no jeopardy involved. And if there's no jeopardy involved, what's the fucking point? Rachel, thank you for gifting a membership, mate. Appreciate you. The Shankly Legacy, thank you, mate. Appreciate you. Look, I'm sure you guys probably feel the same about the whole City stuff, and it just doesn't sit well, does it? The football just doesn't like transparency. You know, the World Cup is about to be awarded, it looks like, in 2034 to Saudi Arabia. Again, a tournament that will once again see no alcohol being sold at it, that will once again probably see it moved, even though they're talking about still doing it in the summer. And you just think the people that are running the sport in the really powerful positions seemingly just are just selling us all out for just more money, more wealth, more power. And when is enough going to be enough? Football, and I thought that they would have copped this after the Super League, is the fan sport. It is. And if City get away with this, I don't blame Liverpool or United or Arsenal or anybody else if they pack up and fuck off. Because what's the point? What's the point if you're playing against a stacked deck? If football continues to be destroyed by state-funded sports watch clubs, I seriously have to consider how much of my time, emotions and effort I put into it in the future. The game will be gone. It will. And not just, again, I really want to make this clear. My argument here is not about particularly Saudi or particularly Abu Dhabi. I've got nothing against the people of those countries. Nothing. It's against any governmental interference in football or any state funds owning football clubs. I've been against it from day one, and I'll never not be against it. Should we adopt the German league model? I think it's too late, because I think the 50+1 rule, you know, you look at the value of Liverpool now. So if fans wanted to buy 51% of Liverpool, you're going to probably have to come together and come up with about £2.5 billion. And that's a lot for fans to raise. So I think the ship has sailed for fan ownership models. As much as it is a very enviable position to see the Bundesliga in, that their fans have that ability to really defend their clubs and have a say on the future direction of the league and their clubs. I just think the ship has sailed for English clubs because of the valuations now. If people don't see why foreign governments owning English clubs is a problem, then they don't really need to reevaluate how they examine the world. Exactly. Like, the rules of the league are there. They're signed up for and agreed by everyone. And once you've signed up and agreed to them, and there is nothing blatantly illegal about it, I don't understand the whole process of this and what we're going through. They're trying to undermine the very league that they're in. And it feels like the other 18 or 19 clubs here are going to have to make a stance on this if they get through and get away with it all. And I don't think we've seen the end of this. If City win this battle with the Premier League, I'm expecting a reaction from the other clubs. Something potentially big, because they're not going to want to just go and compete and throw money away, seeing them just do what they want. The Shankly Legacy said, an example needs to be set. If you don't obey the rules and cheat, then there has to be punishments or it'll keep happening. Exactly. And again, mate, another point here is, look at the Evertons of this world, the Leicesters of this world, the Forests of this world, the Villas of this world, who all had to adjust their budget, sell players, or take points deductions for far lesser offences. So what's really worrying about all of this is just both sides of it, if I'm being honest with you. So let's say they get away with it. Well, we've already covered how we'll all feel if they get away with it. But let's say they don't. Let's say they are found guilty. Then you were talking once again about an unprecedented situation where what is the right punishment? Because the Premier League have made a bit of a rod for their own backs here by dishing out the 10 points to Everton for one. So what do you do with Manchester City then if even half of these charges are proven? Because most of this, if you boil it down, and again, I'm not a solicitor, but it feels like a lot of this is a fraud case. You know, misreporting of numbers. That's fraud, basically. So yeah, it's big. Biggest sporting scandal of my lifetime, potentially. SG said, I think a 2-point deduction per guilty charge. They can't do that though, because they've given others 10. You know, you cannot give Everton a 10-point deduction for one thing and then City do the same thing only for... And again, this is an important point to this as well. At least Everton and other clubs worked with the Premier League. Some of these Manchester City ones have been that they have obstructed the Premier League, that they have misrepresented the numbers. It's far more serious. So, look, I'm going to say it as I see it. If they're found guilty and they're proven, they deserve to be given the strictest possible punishment, whether that's expulsion, whether that's multiple points deductions over multiple years. I cannot speak strongly enough to somebody that comes in, denies, sticks two fingers up to everybody else and doesn't show any remorse whatsoever. If City had have said, yeah, okay, we're guilty of some of these and pleaded out with some of them and put their hands up to some of them, I think at least people would have gone, they were caught and they put their hands up. But this whole Lance Armstrong-esque kind of, no, we didn't do nothing until it's proven, and then go, well, actually, yeah. It's not just the money. The Premier League need to consider the political implications of charging the City Group. It could undermine England and UAE relations. Yeah, and that stinks, doesn't it? Like, I think there was a 10 billion investment in green technology from an Abu Dhabi company into the UK. And that has no place in sport. Us having to have that conversation, Bloom, about the impact of relations between the United Kingdom and the UAE should not belong in sport. It shouldn't be part of this conversation. It's actually so grubby that it is. And it speaks more to the mismanagement of the UK finances that they need this level of investment, that I think it's even more concerning there again. The whole thing from top to bottom just feels grubby, greasy, and certainly not in the best interests of sport. Wayne said, Chelsea, Arsenal, biggest spenders in world football last 4 seasons. That's okay though. Again, I think you're comparing apples and oranges here. The money, Manchester City aren't being charged with overspending. Again, you need to look at the charges. So, Chelsea do have a case to answer. They have a case to answer around misreported numbers from the Roman Abramovich era and they will probably be hit with a transfer ban. And it looks to me like that's why they've stocked up with players in the last few years. But again, it's very different because you're talking about with City somebody who's denying any wrongdoing, and not that they've overspent, it's that they've said that money that they've brought in came from one source when maybe it was another, or that money they were paying Mancini was going to a different account. It's how they've gotten around the rules rather than flat out just overspent. People bend the rules every day in life, and City got around it intelligently. So fraud's intelligent, Gethin, is it? Because that's what this case is ultimately, bro. If you think somebody committing fraud is intelligent, then I'm glad that you're not in law enforcement, mate. Because ultimately that's what this is all about with City. You know, it is at its heart fraud. The charges, I mean. I'm not saying they've committed it because they're entitled to their hearing same as anybody else. But again, whataboutery is bullshit because it just allows this shit to happen. If you're saying, well, this person did this and then another person, they're not related. The whole incident isn't related. You can't just say someone else bend the rules, so let them away with everything. That's not how society works. And also, when you get to that point of what about where you've lost the debate because you're not arguing or you're not debating on the facts and you're not debating in good spirit or conscience, society does work like that, sadly. Does it? So if I'm up in court for murdering somebody, I can say I can get away with it because I can say, well, what about O.J. Simpson? Does that work as my legal argument? Sorry, Your Honour, you might have me up here for murdering my wife, but O.J. Simpson got away with it, so, you know, strike it off there, Judge, I'm away, see you later. Not how life works, mate, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, actually.